Now, first thing we'll do is talk about which positions may be free betting, why, and later we'll get into what ranges. Now, the three basic areas we're going to have is middle position, late position, and blinds. Okay, let's first talk about the blinds. Most of our three betting is going to be done from either late position or the blinds, and not from middle position. Okay, from late position and the blinds, we've got ranges that include plenty of bluffs and plenty of value hands. Now, the reason we'll be three betting wider from the blinds than from middle position, for instance, is that the blinds have the best possible position pre-flop. They get to see what everyone else has done first. The second reason is that they are partially invested already. It costs the blinds less money to three bet. Their bluffs are less expensive. They're getting a better price. And the third reason the blinds have an incentive to three bet is because they will be in the worst possible position post-flop. So incentive is greater to grab what's in the middle before ever seeing a flop. And normally when we three bet from the blinds, our three bets will be to a larger size than when we from late position. And the reason for that is because when the late position bettor three bets, he's going to have the best position post-flop, so it's not as disastrous for him if he gets called. Even when he's bluffing, if he gets called, he gets to see what they're going to do first post-flop. You don't have that luxury in the blinds. Okay? If you make a big bet in blinds and get called, you're playing out of position post-flop, you're in an awkward position. So when we three bet from the blinds, we're making a bigger bet and doing everything we can to take the pot down right now. And even when we're doing this with our value hands, when we catch pocket aces or pocket kings, we want to protect our bluffing range. And the only way we can do that is by betting the same size with our bluffs and our value bets. Okay? Now, when you're in middle position, I would advise not bluffing very often as a three bet, and make mostly three bets for value. The reason is you're not in very good position either pre-flop or post-flop. You have a number of players to play after you. You get called by someone who wants to just float you and use their position against you post-flop. You don't want to be in that position very often. We're going to start right now with our discussion of three betting from position. Okay? And we're talking about three betting from the button or one off the button at the most. And we're talking about after a single raiser. The blinds have posted, it's folded to this fellow. He comes in for four big blinds as a raise, and we're going to three bet him from the button. Now when we three bet, we're going to say that we're just going to make a standard three bet to about 3x, which means 3 times the amount that we have to call. So the button is going to three bet to $60, and this creates a pot, as we see in the middle, of $87. Now, as always, when constructing our range that includes both value bets and bluffs, we have to figure out how big our range is going to be and how heavily it's going to be weighted toward value bets versus bluffs. And the way we always do this is we look at the price that our opponent would be getting on a rebluff. We make sure that we have enough value hands in our range to offset his break-even threshold. In other words, whatever his break-even threshold will be on a rebluff, that's the fraction of our range that needs to be bet. Okay, now when we three bet, normally customary in position is to three bet to about 3x, 3 times the amount we have to call. But on four bets, the bet sizing is a little bit different. A normal four bet is usually only to about 2.5x, or else it's an all-in shove. Now, I'll explain a couple of the reasons why in a minute, but just say that when we three bet, we're looking at the possibility of the initial raiser four betting us. Some of the time it'll be a bluff, and he will do it to about 2.5x, which will be about $150. Okay, 2.5 times 160. So he bets $150. What he's doing is when he raises to $150, he's laying 1.72 to 1. He's betting Well, actually, that's a mistake. When he raises to 150, he's only putting in 130 more since he's already partially invested. He already has 20 in. So let's change this. He's raised to 150. We'll put in 130 there. He's betting 130 to win the $87 that's already in the pot. Okay. When he does this, he's laying about 1.5 to 1, and his break-even threshold is 59.9%. Okay, it's simply 60%. He needs 60% folds when he 4-bets in order to break even. What that means for us is that we need 40% value in our range. Okay, if we fold more than 40% of the time to his 4-bet, he will be able to 4-bet any 2 cards. So when constructing our range, we have to make sure that we have at least 40% value to 60% bluffs. Okay? Now, if you don't know where those numbers came from, I would advise you to look at some of the earlier videos. We went through this again and again. Okay? But basically, construct your range, some of which is value bets, some of which is bluffs. The portion of your range that is value bets, the portion which can continue against a rebluff by the opponent, should at least be equivalent to 1 minus his break-even threshold. His break-even threshold is 59% folds, so the fraction of our range that needs to be value bets is 1 minus 60%, which is 40%. Or another way to look at it is that the number of bluffs that we can have in our range is equivalent to his break-even threshold. We can fold our bluffs when he bluffs. 60% of ours is bluffs. He bluffs. We fold our 60%, and his bluffs break even. Now, I'm going to mention a little bit why the normal 4-bet is to about 2.5x and not to 3x. The main reason is because the person who 4-bets and 4-bet bluffs does not want to become pot committed with his bluffs, and that can happen easily. Let's pull up Poker Stove for a minute, and let's give our initial bettor a 4-bet bluff range. Let's say that he bluffs with ace queen offsuit, ace jack suited, pocket jacks. So he's going to come over the top with a 4-bet bluff on those. And the 3-bettor, his range for continuing against the bluffs, let's just put in his value range here. Pocket queen's a better, or ace king. And let's see how this does. What we see here is that on the bluffs, the initial 2-bettor who comes over as the bluff is out a 7-3 dog here. Okay, he's got 29% equity, and that creates a problem. And if we look at a different 4-bet bluff range, suppose he bluffs with suited connectors. Okay, still he's no more than about a 7-3 dog here. If the initial raiser will be a 7-3 or 2.33 to 1 dog when his 4-bet bluffs are not folded to, it means that he would make a mistake folding to a shove if his pot odds are 2.33 to 1 or better. This means that the 4-bettor cannot 4-bet to more than 40% of effective stacks and then fold, because he'll always be getting 2.33 to 1 or better on a call. So let's illustrate right here. We have the 2 players, each with 100 blind stacks. Suppose player 1 puts 40% of his stack into this pot, leaving him with 60. Now let's say player 2 shoves all in, creating $140 here. Now we showed that his 4-bet bluffs are going to have be no more than a 2.33 dog against this shove. But look what happens now. He has to call 60 to win 140. So if we look here, we take 140 divided by 60. He's getting pot odds of 2.33 to 1. So this means when you're 4-betting, go out 2.5 times the 3-bet amount, but never 4-bet to more than 40% effective stacks. If you need to, then you might as well go all in and shove. Whether you're bluffing or value betting, shove if you have to go past 40% stacks. That's all the time we have right now. We'll continue right here in the next video.